Fathers Who Bother is made possible in part by the contributions of listeners like you. To support Fathers Who Bother, go to our Patreon page at patreon.com/Fathers Who Bother and become a monthly subscriber today. On the next episode of the Fathers Who Bother podcast, I speak with rapper and actor Shay Rhymefest Smith, and we engage in some spiritual sparring as we grapple with generational traumas, how relationships impact parenting, and so much more. Check it out. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Fathers Who Bother, a podcast for men who are dad as we want to be. My next guest is a two-time Grammy Award winner and Oscar winner hailing from Chicago. He released his debut album, Blue Collar, in 2006 and added actor to his resume when he starred as Big George in 2016's The Public. He is a philanthropist, politician, and executive director of Art of Culture, an arts and education space in Chicago that has served over 500 artists since being founded in 2013. Today, we are going to talk about his role as father and son. Please welcome Rhymefest to the podcast.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, brother.
Thank you for joining us, man. This has been a long time coming for me because I don't know if you remember, back in 2010, we had an interview for a site where I was working called the Urban Daily. And he talked about a bunch of things about why why women don't get caught cheating, all kinds of funny topics. But the thing that stood out to me is when you talked about your son, and I think at the time you had gotten custody of him, and you told me a story about how he was eating cereal and how the milk was dribbling down his face. And you said that made you smile because it meant he had more than enough. And
Yes.
that resonated with me. So when I started this podcast, I said, I gotta get with Ryan Fast because I know he has some things to say about fatherhood. And because of obviously the documentary you did with your
Oh,
own.
yes.
So finally, so this is in season 2 now. I did started season 1 on Father's Day last year and had a ball. But I said, all right, I gotta get Ryan Fest for season 2. So normally I start with the kid question, but I want to start with the documentary in my
Mm.
where you met your father, Brian Tillman. What was your earliest memory of your father?
Before then, my earliest memory of my dad was I remember he never had no money. And he would come over and my mother would have to let him borrow, she would give him money to take me somewhere. And not that money is an important thing, but I never learned anything from my father. And I maybe saw him once, twice, 3 times in my life before we reconnected as adults. I remember going to the house where he lived with his grandparents. And my father and his brothers had a room they had a big room in the basement. And the house was so big to me as a child. And I said, one day, I'm gonna buy this house. And I did. That's what I remember.
So talk to me about the planning for the did the meeting with your father happen before the planning of the series of the show or
No. Like that was all happening in real time.
wow.
So the thing was I purchased the house that my father grew up in with his grandparents, and it sent me on these thoughts in my mind like, where am I from? Who am I? Who owned this house? Who were my grandparents? I don't even know. Like, and who's my father? Why did I do this? Why was that in my mind as a child for a man that I barely even know? Why did I want this ancestral home? And when I asked myself all those questions, my mother said, only, if you feel like you need your father or want your father, or you want to answer those questions, go find him. And it was so important for me to have the blessing of my mother. And that's what a lot of people don't realize with our children, right? Is that you may have differences with your child's co-parent, but the child needs your blessing to openly love them. And it was so beautiful of my mother to help me in this journey to reconnect with a man that left her with a child on her own. That's love, man. That's forgiveness. That's where we gotta be, man. We gotta let it go. All of this personal, and another thing that makes me think, bro, we as children are very selfish. We talk a lot about how we was raised and what we didn't have, and I'm giving my kids better than I got, but we don't think about our parents' story, and maybe you got better than they got, and maybe they did the best they could for where they were coming from in the lineage of breaking these generational curses. You know what I'm saying? It happens in increments. It don't happen all at once. And your children gonna grow up and they gonna say how bad it was for them and how they doing better for their kids. We as children don't think about it in our selfishness and in our arrogance of the story of our lineage. As though righteousness began with us.
You're right. You're right. Funny, as of late, I've been thinking about how old my father was, or what my father was doing when he was my age now. It's a thought I've been having recently. My father passed in 2018, but
yeah,
I was like, wait a minute, I'm 46. What was my dad doing in 46? And I did the math. I'm like, okay, he was 46 in 1991 when I was a junior in high school. And I tried to put myself in his place at that time. What was going through his mind with having a son about to go to college? I'm like, shoot, I'm going through that right now. And I think about the pedestal I had my father on then, that he must have had everything together. Then I think about me right now and how I'm like, damn, I don't know what I'm doing day to day sometimes. And it gave me a new sense of empathy for my father, imagining what he was going through when he was my age. What was he going through at 46? You know?
You just said the word right there, empathy. Empathy and compassion is what makes us lack kindness and consideration. The lack of empathy and compassion also breeds the lack of kindness and consideration. And that makes it hard to be family.
So what was going through your mind while you're meeting your father? There's cameras on. What's going through your head?
Well, because I am from an entertainment background, the cameras didn't mean much to me to how I wanted to relate to my father in the moment of our reunion. So I was able to, the biggest thing, Jay, is that my father was homeless. My father wanted to meet me in a library because that was the one place he knew he could have dignity when we first met. It wasn't an alley. It wasn't a store. It was a place of business. It was community. It was everything he believed his son was about. And so he wanted to meet me in the library, and that meant something. That meant something to me. Right. And so he was reaching out the best way he could. And I found out that, homelessness, the library is where they meet.
Right.
When they're homeless. Yep. How apropos that I was in the movie and I was playing that character that my father lived. Like, man, life is an amazing thing if we just give it a chance. And if we're courageous enough to tackle our own issues. Absolutely. I believe me getting that movie, Emilio Estevez called me out of nowhere to do the public. I believe me getting the role for that film and being able to do the music for it was a blessing for saving my father from homelessness. We think about our careers a lot, like we think about how to make money, but I really believe that there's something to, if you solve your own issues, everything else will follow.
That's a word right there. So it's been some years since the documentary. How are you?
How am I? I'm sorry.
How are you and your father now? Your relationship?
Oh man, it's beautiful, man. Like it's as beautiful as the documentary was. Like You know what's funny about it? It didn't take long for my father and I to turn into Fred and Lamont Sanford. It didn't take long for it to just fall in place.
How so? How talk to me about that.
Well, we love each other and we call each other big dummies. And you know, I'm like, you know, because my father, because he was homeless for 30 years, he still lives like a homeless person in an apartment. So that's the sitcom right there. You know what I'm saying? And here I am trying to make him adjust to what I believe is a normal way of living.
Mm.
But that ain't the way he's been programmed.
Right.
And so using love to try to build understanding becomes very comical.
I can imagine. And you got jokes already, so now you're finding out where you get the jokes from. Isn't that like the
Yes.
part when you see with things that you've done and said that you think just came out of the ether? You like, oh no, this is the source, right? Did you have that?
Yo, hey, bro, I'm gonna tell you a really interesting story about that. When I was growing up, because I didn't really know my father and what I knew of him was kind of loosely, I used to blame my mother. And I used to be like, yo, she had sex with somebody with bad genes. And so I made up in my mind everything that was like bad about me or messed up about me was because my mother had sex with a man with bad genes, and I got to overcome the genes of him and his family that I didn't even know. You know what I'm saying? And really, and I got to overcome it. And when I met my father and we got to the love part, I realized that my humor came from him. My charisma came from him. My cleverness, my wittiness came from my father. He didn't survive 30 years homeless because he was tough. He survived because he was funny, because he was witty, because he was clever. And those are all the same qualities that made me who I am now. And damn, I was blaming my father all my life for my own flaws.
Mm.
A lot of us do that.
Oh yeah. See, I luckily I grew up with my father, and I started noticing things about myself that came from him from a teen. Like I remember when I first started getting facial hair. The first time I looked at the mirror and I thought I was like, oh shoot, that's daddy. And then when I got kids, you know, I would say things to them, and it would be his voice coming out of his mouth. You know, got life too good. He used to he used to always tell us that because we wouldn't want to eat food or whatever. And my father, you know, he grew up in the Guyana and the West Indies, and you know, pretty poor. So he saw all the stuff he gave us, and then we didn't seem appreciative. He'd be like, "Y'all got life too good," and I've caught myself saying the same thing to my kid.
When did your father ascend?
In 2018.
What was that like for you?
It's tough. It was tough.
How old was he?
He was doing the math badly, about 70, was 74. He had had a stroke and had lost mobility on half of his body. And basically, about a year, almost a year after the stroke, he passed because he had heart issues and other things. So it was kind of like a slow process,
Decline.
slow decline, you know, and it was hard because he was a mobile man. He roamed the street, he like the gallivant, as my relatives like to say. And him being bedridden was driving him crazy. It was hard to watch. There was somewhat a sense of relief when he finally did transition because I knew he wasn't, you know, in pain. And I couldn't imagine him going through this now, this lockdown that we're in, and no, yeah,
You know what I believe though, man? I really believe, and let's talk spiritual for a minute. The first thing I want to talk about is when you hear your father's voice come out of you,
mm,
is because that is his spirit within you. Like you all have combined now, and he had to leave so that you could come into your bounty. You know what I'm saying? And like, you know, sometimes like I think that the spirits, bro, like it's real. Like I was riding on a motorcycle through the mountain with my wife,
Mm,
and I could feel my grandfather on that bike with me,
mm.
in me. I could feel, because he was part of a motorcycle club. He would have been, I was wearing his jacket that he wore in Vietnam while I was riding that bike on that mountain. And I knew he would want to be there. And I felt so unsafe on that 13,000-foot mountain. And I called on my grandfather and I said, hold me up. And
Mm.
man, I was coasting. You know what I'm saying? I believe that we have access now that we didn't have when we were younger. And it's up to us how we use it.
Yeah, agreed. I have a shirt of his, and it's so funny because towards the end of his life, he was very slim, but he had this Brooks Brothers shirt that for some reason he bought maybe two sizes too big. It fit me perfectly, and I was going through his closet. I said, "Mom, I want that shirt." He said, "Your father got this shirt here. He ain't never wore it." And I wear that shirt, and I can feel him. I've worn it when I've done interviews. I've worn it to work. I've worn it. And it's just like this is my father's shirt, and it's so funny because it is no way this shirt fit him, but it's almost like he bought it intending for me to have it after the fact. So I feel you on that connection there.
Mm. And we have to create moments for our children to connect when we're not here.
Yeah,
And I work on that a lot, man. I mean, and then I find the more I work on that, the more what I'm doing every day matters more. You know what I'm saying? Like the example I'm setting.
mm,
Like I'm gonna tell you a deep story since this is about fatherhood.
of course.
My daughter asked me the other day why her brother, who is 21, doesn't come around as much.
Mm,
And I said, I think because I traumatized him when he was young. She
mm,
said, how'd you traumatize him? Did you beat him? I said, no. I said, I called his mama a lot of fat bitches.
ooh,
And I we fought over him. And we fought in court for 12 years. And
mm,
we thought we were fighting in the best interest of the child, but we was really fighting each other.
mm,
And I said, I traumatized him, and I think he doesn't know who I am now,
mm.
and it can't deal with who I've become from that, and how that's calmed me down. He doesn't know me now like you know me,
Wow. Is this the
and
son
I realize the difference between children and
is
when we raise them.
out in 2010? Is this the one you got custody of?
Yep,
Okay.
that's him.
Okay.
And I was so, I hated his mother. I hated her. And
Mm,
that's a strong word to use. But
mm,
I hated that she put him on Ritalin. I hated that, and I didn't want my son on those medications.
right.
I hated that when I ran for office, she went and helped the other person that
Mm,
I was running against. I hated that I did her so wrong and cheated on her, and I couldn't do nothing to take it back. But damn, why we got to keep fighting going forward? I, I hated that I was in court as a black man with all these women and white people and not one other black man adjudicating this case. And I hated that it felt so unfair. And that minus her having a mental breakdown in court, I would not have gotten justice. I
mm,
hated it. And I
mm.
hated her for it. And I didn't know how to temper my hate with wisdom and love. And my son felt both my hate and his mother's hate for one another. How can that make a balanced child, especially on mind altering drugs like Ritalin? And
Mm,
so I didn't understand because I was young, and I needed a mentor, like most black men need mentors. And I decided to be the example of how to heal. And that's where saving my father came in, because I figured if I could forgive my father, love my father, then my children could see that example, and I could fix my family 7 generations before and 7 generations after. And so I said that to my daughter. And my daughter's 13, and she looked at me like, what the hell? Like, what you got to get off your, say what you really feel. And but this is how I talk to my children. And that night, her mother came over and tested exactly what I told her that day. Her mother came to pick her up. And, I teach my daughter Buddhism and Taoism and different spiritual techniques. And her mother's Jesus all the time, God is good, all the time, God is good. So that type of, and she said, in front of my wife and in front of my daughter, her mother said, are you teaching our daughter witchcraft? Is that what you practice, witchcraft? And I said, why would you say that? You giving her incense and crystals and all this craziness. I said, well, what is witchcraft to you? Shit, it might be. I don't know. What you think witchcraft is? She said, voodoo, dark magic. Is it you practicing dark magic? I said, oh, no, not that. And she said, well, it ain't Jesus and you don't worship Jesus. And she started going in on me, man. And this would have been 7 years ago when I would have said, fat bitch, get out of my house. But I just told my daughter I traumatized my son that way. And my daughter was watching me. And whatever you say is coming to look for you. And I just said it, and it was coming to look for me. And I looked at her, and I said, okay, everybody get your coats. Time to go home. Daddy love you. Talk to you tomorrow.
Oh, my.
And put them out. And with love. And she called me the next morning and apologized and said, I'm sorry. I couldn't sleep all night. See, I let her go with the spirit she bought. And I didn't engage.
Oh, with the spirit she brought. Ooh.
I let her go with the spirit she bought. And man, she called me 6 a.m. Me and my wife in the bed. I put it on speakerphone. I want to apologize to you. Just because I don't understand what you're teaching her, don't mean you don't need to be teaching her. See, that's what men don't understand when dealing with women. Stop arguing and getting into the details. Just solve the problem.
Solve the problem.
Solve the problem.
What do you remember about when you first found out you were having your son? Is he your first? Is he your oldest?
My son?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So the first time, what do you remember about finding out you were going to be having him? What was going on in your life?
When I found out I was going to be having a son, I played Denise Williams all day, every day on that belly. Let's hear it for the boy. Let's get a boy a hand. Let's hear it for my baby. I know it's hard to understand. He is not my Romeo, but he's my loving one-man show. Oh.
So you were happy. You were like, I'm a happy pappy.
When my son was being born, everything stopped, even hip hop.
Really?
Even hip hop. Everything stopped, including hip hop. And I paid attention and I focused. And can I tell you the wisest advice anybody ever gave to me about having a son?
What was that?
I was concerned because my father wasn't around like how I wanted to be. And someone said, get a ball, throw it in the air, and catch it. Your son is going to be amazed because he doesn't know how to do that. You're already years ahead. Anything you do is teaching him. Don't worry about if you don't know how to tie a tie or go or fish or shoot a gun. Anything you do, you're teaching him. Just pay attention to what it is you're doing every day.
They observe. They see everything. My son's quiet, but he just spits things back to me. I didn't even know that he was paying attention to. Like, Dad, remember that time you did it? I'm like, wait, what? You were paying attention to that? Man, so
Yeah. A lot of times we think we have to have a special lesson or a special power or something. We watch too much TV about what it is to be a dad. What
mm,
it is to be a dad, bro, is only getting up, being the best man you can be every day.
you're glitching a little bit.
Huh?
You were glitching a little bit. You crossing the border? You driving up to Canada, man? What's going
Yeah. You know what just happened? I just crossed back to the black side of town.
Oh man.
So when we cross back to the black side of town, the internet tower ain't as you know.
Oh, so your son is here. You're happy. Did it affect your art at all? Like, did you change what you rapped about, lyrics you wrote? Like, did it impact you in any way or not? Did it?
Yeah, sons don't make that happen. Daughters do.
Why?
A man doesn't come responsible until he has a girl. A
Mm,
child in itself don't make a man responsible. But
mm,
it's something about if you're paying attention to your girl,
mm,
everything has to change. I mean, listen, man, I you know, I like some freaky stuff, man. However, when I'm with my daughter, everything shocks me. I'm like, what? Wait, what's the name of that song? What? She's like, Daddy, come on, man, stop playing. You rhyme, you know what it. I'm like, nah, I ain't never heard of no WAP. What is a what? What?
not
What that stand for? I'll
Don't
be
tell me
stupid.
that fast. Don't tell me that. Come on
Yeah,
now.
man, look, bro, I'll be stupid as hell. I'll be like, now what does WAP stand for? Because you know why? I want her to be able to say it to me. If you can say the acronym, say it. And if you don't feel comfortable saying it, maybe it ain't right. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's one of those things where your daughter, while you got to be real with them, they also have to respect you. And the only way they can respect you is if you respect yourself. And I had to learn to respect myself because in hip hop, a lot of men are taught not to respect ourselves.
Hmm, interesting. So you don't think you had that sense about you until you had a daughter?
Not consciously aware of it.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah, my daughter made me like conscious that like every day I had to like remind myself, when you're with this lady, what kind of man do you want her to have? And the kind of man you want her to have is the kind of man you show up as.
Hmm. That part I can agree with. Like I definitely try to be a like, living example for both of my children, but particularly with my daughter, which is why to this day I've never raised my hand on her. I don't want her to know that that's acceptable for any man to put her hand on her, including her.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we do daddy daughter date nights. I take her out. She's like, "Daddy, did you dress up? Where's your tie?" You know, and I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. Pull out her chair, stuff like that. I want her to know how she's supposed to be treated, but I don't think that it took her, being born for me to understand how women should be treated, or you know, for me to act a
Why?
certain.
But that's because you can't. But see, can you hear me? Good.
I can hear you fine. I can hear you fine. Yeah.
All right, that's because you came up in a two-parent household and you were taught a certain way.
Hmm.
Your program was already a certain way. Like I had to learn a lot on my own and through trial and error. You know what I'm saying? And that is the difference with a lot of black men out here. You know what I'm saying? Like black men don't understand where other men come from, and we say, "Oh, everything should be like this."
Hmm.
Another man might be trying the best he can to put something together. You know what I'm saying? I had to get my son wrong so I could get my daughter right. You know what I mean? Like, my daughter's right.
Right.
Now when a person is grown And my mother told me this
Mhm.
because I told my mother about a lot of issues I had with her boyfriends
Mm.
growing up and how I learned how to treat women how men treated my mama.
Wow.
And I told my mama that.
Mm.
And my mother said, who I love so much dearly, love my mother. Oh my God, we the closest dynamic duo right now.
Mm.
But my mother said to me, when I had you, I was 16 years old. I was a child. I didn't know. I'm in my 20s and you 10. You know what I'm saying? Like, she said, I didn't know. She said, and you know, I'm embarrassed of my behavior.
Mm.
And but as a me and be upset or how we move forward. If you would like to love, because I'm a different woman now than I was then. The same thing I told my daughter about my son.
Wow.
And I chose to love and forgive, and we putting our families together.
Mm.
See, I think we think the black family is supposed to already come self-made.
Mm.
Like you already have a lot. The black family is in repairing mode. You know what I'm saying? And there are a lot of lessons that we have to talk about
Right.
in this repair. There are a lot of different. That's why your show is so wonderful, because we get to bring up the different aspects of repairing family
Yes.
and really go in depth about it. That's beautiful.
Yes. What you're saying reminds me of a lyric of yours that I wanted to touch on from Make Noise. You started it out saying how you raise a household with your mouth closed. Only
Mm.
you let the power. Uh, Expound on that for me if you can.
The lyric, how do you raise a, say the lyric one more
How
time,
to
brother.
raise a household with your mouth closed.
Which song was that?
Make Noise. This was
Oh yes, with Black Thought. Yeah. You know, it's just about how we don't have real conversations with each other because of insecurity, fear, and resentment. There are men who are with their women and don't feel like they have no power
hmm,
in the relationship or in the house. So they estrange themselves. They get a job, work, come home, and don't interact. You know what I'm saying? And just you can't raise a household with your mouth closed.
hmm,
You know what I'm saying? Like, is there are mothers who watch their sons do crazy shit
hmm.
and don't say nothing and act like it's all good.
Yeah.
They boo-boo don't stink because it's my baby. You can't raise a household with your mouth closed. If you come in and put dope or a gun on the table, you better address it.
Hmm.
You
Fact.
know, that
Yeah.
type of thing.
Got you. Got you. So you have two daughters. When did your first daughter come along?
My first daughter was born in 2007.
Okay.
And you know, shit, I met her mama at Shark's Chicken. And her mama had a big booty. And black people don't know how to mate. And what we think we want as we grow older as men, like I was 30 years old, and in rap music, I was like, oh, I'm old. This shit is over. I need a young girl. I need a tennis shoe boo that's gonna throw shit out the window at people. I need a wild girl. I need Shark's Chicken. I need some, and I got what I was asking for. And she got pregnant, and I didn't think I wanted it, but I guess I did.
Mhm.
And I realized my daughter's mother is a reflection of where my mind was.
Hmm.
I think we have to start looking at our co-parents as a reflection of our decisions and ourselves. And it'll help us to stop arguing with them if we can work ourselves out. The part of us that even made a star explode with each other,
Hmm.
called a child.
Did you feel any more prepared or no? Considering this is your second child now.
No, because I was doing wild stuff in hip hop. I was out on tour and I wasn't really. Like I said, the sun didn't do it for me. He didn't. The sun didn't. It made me aware of child. My son made me aware of responsibility. He got me halfway there. My daughter brought me in the rest of the way.
Interesting.
My son got me halfway there. My son helped me to be like, okay, I can't just be all out everywhere. I got a son, and and then we love holding our children as trophies and validation of how adult we are and how responsible we are. Look at my child. But that don't mean that. You know what I'm saying? And I had to learn that, like, through my daughter, I had to learn tenderness. Tenderness. And my second wife and my daughter taught me tenderness. And I think a lot of times men, we're missing tenderness.
Why do you think we don't have the capability of fostering that in ourselves without an external person, like a child or a daughter?
I think it's arrogant to even want that because, that's what life is about, right? Life is about, this child has come to earth to teach you how to get along. This child is a gift. If you could do it on your own, then the child wouldn't be a gift. The child would be a burden. The child helps you to find better parts of yourself. But then that's what goes back to what we were discussing. Man, you had it better than me, and prayerfully yours will have it better than you through what we learn.
Right.
That's how we extend generations. That's how we keep humanity going. If you could do all of that on your own, why would you procreate?
I guess I think about those who don't procreate or can't procreate. Are they supposed to just remain emotionally stunted, for lack of a better word? Because you have some brothers, they'll wait until they're older to have kids. Does that mean, from 20 to 40, if you have your first kid at 41, so for those 20 years, you're just lost in the wilderness with no sense of self, and you're waiting for your child to bestow this knowledge upon you? Like, I'm just asking this question.
No, I think it's a beautiful question, and this is kind of why, like, I got a divorce in my last marriage, a piece of a reason, but not the whole reason. But it's like, my current wife is adopted. She's a woman of color, adopted by two white parents. And they loved her. And I can tell when I speak to them that there's no difference between biological children and adopted children in terms of what you can put into them and what you can put out in the world. She loves them. They are her parents. And so I think that the way we as a Black community think about fostering children and adopting children is we need to have a talk with one another about this because there are all types of options on how to replace yourself. You know what I'm saying? And like, it ain't just sperm. You're like your sperm or your egg. They're all, and they're Black, and the majority of who needs you looks like you. But we got this stigma about orphans, and I think that we will be judged for that by God.
I have a few friends that have adopted it, and it's a beautiful thing. It takes a special person, I think, to take a child that isn't of your loins and say, you know what, I'm going to. Back one of my earliest guests, Denon Porter, his daughter.
I love Denon. That's my buddy.
His daughter, isn't his biological daughter, but he said, as far as I'm concerned, that's my daughter. So
and to your point, there are a lot of men who are doing that. Like a lot of men, there are a lot of women out here who the father is not in the picture,
Right.
And my second daughter is one. I didn't really want anything to do with my second daughter for a few years, because of what was going on with me and the mom,
Mm.
and that's documented and in my father's house as well.
Mm.
And she is with another man, and that man took care of my daughter for those years,
Mm.
and as well as his own children, in the house with my daughter's mom, and I honor him for that. You
Mm.
know what I mean? And there are a lot of men, I know a lot of men taking children from in a relationship, and really that's the old way that it used to be done.
Mm.
And now, fortunately, my second daughter and I have a great relationship, and we see each other regularly. And I realized something in that as a father, like, you know, sometimes we want what we want, and the mothers want what they want. And if either of us can't have what we want, we just walk away with our ball. You know what I'm saying? And I was always willing to be like, my pride was that of like, if you're not gonna let me participate in the life of this child, if you're not gonna let me, have joint custody and say so, hey, that's your baby. You figure it out.
Mm.
Like, that's where my coldness was.
Mm.
And the fact that I didn't want to participate in the life of the child. Hell, I raised my son. I'm with my first daughter. With my second daughter, it was more of a participation. And I even did it with my first daughter. When the mama was acting crazy, all right, y'all be over there. I ain't got to, you and the child, y'all be good, because that's your baby. As a father, I can just participate as much as you allow me. But
Mm.
then when I started working with love, bro, I started seeing things different.
Mm.
I started saying, damn, pay the child support, do everything you supposed to do, and be the example of the love you telling her you want. Be the example of, like, lead this shit, man. What is you doing? You following her. You shit. She do this, you do that. That's big shit, bro. That's not masculine.
Mm.
And it's I learned it all through the process with my father, like saving my father. Had I not done that, bro, I might not be showing up in the way I'm showing up right now.
Wow.
Like, so it's, huh?
That was healing for you.
It was healing, bro. Cause I realized what the family curse was. We was all mad at each other for nothing.
Well spent though. That's
And I just started paying my child support. Not, with my second daughter, I started paying my child support. Just, hey, whatever, no thing, whatever. And then the days came where I was like, okay, I need to see her.
mm.
Period. This really ain't no negotiation. Like, men got to know how to show up. You know what I'm saying? Hey, I need this New Year's. I mean, I ain't really did no holidays with her, but this New Year's, she needs to be with her sister at my house
Mm.
with me and my wife. That's happening. And
Right.
and then the mamas be like, man, he done been so straight in there. I can't say no. And that's the position I think a lot of disgruntled fathers have to put ourselves in.
Mm.
Put yourself in a position where they can't say no.
Mm.
Stop arguing about yes or no. Like, you're giving it equality. Don't give it equality. Just put yourself in a good position.
Right, but you're saying you're in a position where you can make that demand because your life is in such order that you can have you say I want my daughter with me for New Year's Eve and not look crazy. You know what I
And
mean?
it not look fucking crazy. Come on, man. You know what I'm saying?
I get it.
We out here looking crazy,
Right. It goes
talking about what she won't let us do with our kids.
you have to some things do have to be earned, you know. Are you still there? It looks like.
Yeah, I'm still here. I'm here. A call came through.
Okay, no problem. It's like you know, it's this subject of what's the word I'm looking for? Submission comes up a lot, and men saying women should submit. It's like, who is she submitting to? Like, what are you doing that makes her comfortable enough to submit to your decisions and your choices?
Yes.
You know what I'm
And
saying?
what is your history? Like, so this is the thing. What's gonna happen is there are gonna be some men that watch this
Mhm.
and that are gonna say, okay, I'm gonna do right. I'm gonna make better choices. And I want my child. Hey, bro, that's gonna take about a year, 2 years.
Mm.
It's a process.
Yeah.
We want instant, like, yo, and you gotta be okay with whatever she says about no or I'm not comfortable. You got to be okay with that until it's just nothing, no argument. If that makes sense.
It does. It does because it's give and take. You have to show that you trust her before she's going to trust you. And
Yeah.
if whole relationship has been marked by conflict and arguing, what makes you think she's ever going to see your side of your point of view? Mind
She's never going to see it. And let's not take away, yeah, it might be a little crazy. She might be crazy. She might be wrong. It might be a lot. Her family might be involved in trying to sabotage, you know what I'm saying? The relationship between, it could be anything.
right.
I guess what I'm saying is like, you control you.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of men believe we are controlled by the circumstance when we can become the circumstance.
Hmm.
I was the circumstance by which, even though, you know, the guy that helped raise my second daughter, he doesn't want to talk to me. He doesn't want to have no involvement. He tries to like stand, like, even, you know, now that I'm present, you know, he'll try to blow it up because he believes that's my daughter. I get it. I get it. He believes that's his daughter.
Hmm.
And, you know, but I am such a circumstance that it is so compelling that you, come on, man. You might as well call me and let's say hi and figure out how to work with her together.
Yep.
And I appreciate you. And if you only knew how much, and I know you're upset, but I'm back. Like,
Yeah.
and it's such a circumstance, no one can say no.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes. It absolutely does. It absolutely. It comes down to, we call it compromise, we call it responsibility. We use big words, but it coming down to choosing joy is what it comes down to. You know, you can.
You know, and I think there's something to it too. You know, men should know it's never too late. A lot of men stay away from their children because of embarrassment.
Hmm.
Embarrassment. And of what you didn't do or the past. It's
Right.
never too late to step up in the life of your child, even when that child is in their 20s.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've had friends have reconnect with children they didn't even know they had. You know, an 18-year-old pops up and says, "Hey,
Mm.
that's real." You know, because the relationship with
Mm-hmm.
the mother was like, "Oh well, you know, this wasn't a real thing, so I'm just going to take this baby and go, and I'm not even going to bother you." And then they show up later on and say, "Oh yeah, I was pregnant, but I knew what we had wasn't nothing real," according to the woman. So I
Mm-hmm.
bring to you the whole baby thing because I didn't want that drama. She just left him. So it happened. People think it only happens in movies, but trust me, it happens.
No, it really does happen. And you know, I think I want to say too, you know, and I don't know what you talk about on your show or who you talk about, you know, what the conclusion usually is,
Mm,
but the majority of black men take care of their children.
they do. Yes, we do.
And the problem becomes, I think what we're discussing, the problem we have is not, do we take care of our children or are we willing to? The issue is our relationships.
Hmm.
We don't have so the majority of our children are not in one household.
Mm.
It's like blended family. It's like daddy girlfriend or mama boyfriend. What we're speaking to. It's like your parents were able to, and I guess you should tell us what is the secret that you saw to a healthy relationship, because a lot of your Black brothers and sisters don't know how to mate.
Well, I've said this before to folks, and I maybe been on a previous episode. I celebrated my 20th wedding anniversary in October, and if I shared anything that's close to a secret, is understanding that people change, and you have to be open to letting them change, because that person that you married back when is not the same person now. We get locked into this idea that, oh, this is who you were. Why are you changing? People change. I got married at 26. You trying to tell me I'm gonna be the same man at 46 as I was at 26? Does anybody want to be the same person they were 20 years ago?
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? But we feel like when we get into these long-term relationships, these people are the person's not supposed to change.
But how do you? So then the question becomes, how do we grow together? Because, my ex-wife and I, when we got divorced, and she's a beautiful, dynamic woman, my mother came over and said, "Where's your wife?" Because the plants were dying, the animals were sick, the house, the spirit of the house was off. And and I tried to, oh, Ma, look at this, look at that. Where's your wife? Where's Donnie? And I said, "Sit down, Ma." And I told her what happened. And my mother said, "Those plants aren't dying." She said they're stuffed in a pot together and they're choking each other, and they need to be repotted in different pots so they can grow apart.
Mm. That's real. That's real.
You know what I'm saying?
That's real. And I think that's what goes back to what my thought about giving room to change is more metaphorical. We've given each other the room to repot in our marriage. We're still in the same house, so to speak, but we've given each other room to grow apart from each other. And we come together. A very simple, silly example. We used to fight over covers in when we slept. And decided, you know what? We're getting two blankets. We're gonna have two comforters. You're gonna have a comforter, and I'm gonna have a comforter. And that way, we're gonna stop fighting for this one comforter. And we started getting the best sleep of our lives because we decided we were just gonna give each other our own comforters. Very small, but and the other thing was we were able to, not everybody, we got a bigger bed. We got a king size bed. I made the joke. The bed was so big that we only touched each other when we wanted to. It had to be intentional. Like, you can sleep on your side and I slept on my side, and we didn't even, the bed was big enough that we didn't even have to touch each other. But then
let me ask you, in that, how do you keep from growing apart in the same house?
Because we had too much stuff that we needed to do to get done together. We still had
children. Yeah.
We still had food to procure. We still had to run a household together. So, and then but we still made sure we had things that we did together. We love a good meal, and cook. If it's a simple thing as going out to eat, making time to do things together. Yes, that's the other part of it. Yes, give each other space to grow separately, but you also have to have things that you do together. You have to have that. So if we're gonna go away on a trip, just you and me, then it's just the two of us. You know what I'm saying? So those, you have to have that balance.
Let me ask you a question for your daughters.
Sure. Well, I have one daughter, but yeah, go ahead.
Your daughter. Does it matter? Do you need to meet whoever they want to date at any given time?
I would like to. I would like to for both of my
No, not I would like to. Is it like, no, you got to, whoever you're dating, I need you to bring that through the door?
You know what? This is my thought. And it extends to how my relationship with my sister. I never hounded my sister about who she was seeing. I knew when my sister brought a dude home, he was worth seeing, worth meeting. So I'm trying to have that same attitude with my children. Like I don't necessarily feel that, well, they're young. So I think when they first start out, I'm gonna want to meet to see who it is that they're connecting to. But when they get into their 20s, when they're out of my house, I don't need to meet everybody they meet that they're dating. I want to meet the person they think is important enough for me to meet. That's how I feel for my daughter and my son. They go out and they meet somebody when they feel like, hey, I want you to meet. Because that's how I was. I had girlfriends that my parents didn't meet, but the ones that did, they remember. They were the ones that were quote unquote special.
Mm.
So I feel like I've fostered a strong enough relationship with my children where my opinion matters, which is another whole discipline conversation we can get into. The reason why I don't have to hit my children is because they value my opinion. What I think matters, so they seek my approval. So I think that when they are dating and there's someone that they want me to approve, they'll bring them by. I'm confident in that. I don't think I need to mandate it. My wife might feel differently.
Yeah.
But as of right now, I think I'd feel comfortable when they just say, when I'll feel better when she comes home and says, "Hey, daddy, I want you to meet so and so," because I know that person's been vetted.
Mm.
That
Now
person,
let me ask you a question.
sure,
Do their parents matter? Who
absolutely,
their parents are?
yeah,
Are.
I do. I
Why?
even because it lets me know who they are as people. If the parents are in the picture that I can meet, absolutely. I've always felt better, even just with school age friends. The kids whose parents I met, I got along with better because I knew what was going on in their home and I wasn't caught off guard. You know, I could see if they had similar values to us. And I'm not even talking about religion or anything like that, but just basic, if I'm leaving my kid with you for a birthday party, I need to know that you're not going to let them set things on fire or anything like that. But you
I'm
about to.
sorry?
Yeah, I know. I see you doing daddy duty right now, man.
Yeah, but no, but that I've been talking to my daughter about that, and it's very important for me that you, you know I I wanted to meet whoever she felt like she was in love with. To your point,
Mhm.
she said my mother told me about my grandfather meeting her first real boyfriend, and he put the gun on the table with the bullets and got and got my brother and all my uncles were standing around, and I said, yeah, that don't work.
No.
And she said, what you mean it don't work? Like she said, they explained it to me. See, and this is when your child is getting taught two different things. You gotta make sure that what you would like to teach your child that you say to them and scare somebody into doing right. I don't think we can intimidate someone we love. That's the way it works. I said, in fact, I think it'll mess up the relationship. I mean, your mom ain't with him no more, is she? She's like, and,
Exactly.
you and so like, my daughter was like, she said, well, what would you say if I brought a boy I loved home?
Right.
And I said, I'd tell him, son, I'm gonna say some things you're gonna understand. I'm gonna say some things you're not gonna understand, and I'm gonna say some things you're gonna understand later. But I love my daughter more than I love myself, and I pray that I would say to that boy, because I love my daughter more than I love myself, if you can be kind, if you can love, I
Mm,
will extend that love to you.
mm,
And that's what we do in this family. And if you cannot be kind and if you cannot love, then my daughter may not be the one for you.
mm.
And my daughter looked at me, she said, well, I hope you really say that at that time. I said, well, that's the speech I got in my head. So you tell me the speech. What are you going to say to your daughter's first love?
I don't know. I haven't thought about it because my kids are so headstrong that I don't feel like one, I don't feel like I need to intimidate.
In a plaza with the movie theater.
No, you make it past my son and my daughter, you pretty much good money. Because we've raised them to be so discerning that I'm not really stressing. But like I've read my kids writing. They write a lot about relationships. Interesting enough. So I know this is something that they're thinking about, how they want to be treated by people. So I don't know if I have a speech yet, but maybe I'll get one together. I'll get one together.
I mean, you need a few words, man, because you know what I think it is. Those words. That's the constitution of the family values.
The constitution of the family values. I like
And
it.
and I think it's important for whoever's coming into your family to
Mm.
know the constitution of your values.
I dig it. I dig it. I feel like my wife has more to say in that line, so I might have to confer with her because she's already made comments about if they can't use the comb, don't bring them home. Because my kids go to private school, so they don't run into a lot of folks that look like us. So she told them early on. She tried to steer them in a certain direction, but I think
But
like
it was so. Would you have an issue with if your children brought home uh mates of another race?
not at all, not at all.
Yeah. So if you're hold on, bro, we're gonna do some real black man talk right now, bro.
Sure.
Your daughter brings home Lance or Blake, and we got an idea of what Lance or Blake looks like,
Right.
and you're okay with it. Cool. Everything cool.
If they make my daughter happy, if she's happy, my daughter's not easy to please. You know.
Well, yeah.
If she's happy, then and like I said, it goes back to if she thought they were important enough to bring home, then I feel like I gotta give them a chance at least before I shut it down. But this is who they've been growing up around since they've been small, so I can't even act like that's out of the ordinary. It'd be one thing if my daughter was going to an all black school and she decided she wanted to just date the one random white dude that was in the class. I'd be like, well, why him? But majority of her classmates are white, so I can't act surprised.
Well, see, and then that's another thing, right? You put her. That's the environment you put her in to meet that type. You know what I'm saying? Like you know, again, my wife is of mixed race, and my wife has white parents, and I love them.
Right.
We are one, as Mays would say. You know what I'm saying? But with my daughter, yeah, I want her to be with. Yes, I want her to be with someone that loves her,
Right.
and that she loves, and someone that will care for her, no matter who that is. And at the same time, I want my daughter to always feel culturally enriched.
Yes.
And it had to be a very special Caucasian man
Yes.
to make me feel as though he could enrich my daughter culturally.
I think we're saying the same thing because I think my daughter, she's probably even more culturally. Oh, she projects more of her blackness than my son does. So I think in her case, if a white kid embraced who she was, knowing what I know about my daughter, and he felt comfortable and she felt comfortable with him, I'd have to give him a chance.
But I don't just mean black and white. I mean, even for the black guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, even for the black guy, it's like, what do you know about the world, bro?
Yes. Yes.
Where are you trying to like go? You know what I'm saying? Like what do you know about Gandhi? What do you know about Mandela? What do you know about Fela Kuti? What do you know about history? And these aren't even people that was around when I came up. These is before my time. So you should know them too. Who do you know before your time? You know, from where? Like, I'm looking for that.
Yes.
Like, what kind of art do you, I tell my sisters and my daughter all the time, what kind of art does he like? What kind of music does he listen to? What kind of, you know, what does he read if he reads at all? You know what I mean? And this tells us who we're dealing with.
Well, yeah. If he don't read, then no.
Hey, bro, but you know, you'll be surprised. A lot of young people don't read now. A lot of people do, as you know, audiobooks. You know what I mean? I do audiobooks sometimes. I still love reading though. But reading is kind of going out of style.
We got to fight that because YouTube's taking.
You say we got to fight that, bro.
You got to fight. It's few things. I'm usually pretty lax with a lot of things, but when you tell me that you don't read books, that's a red flag for me because that tells me that you're getting all your information from YouTube.
Well, maybe, but what if I told you that that's the new norm in society? Meaning, like, I just read the other day, they're taking clocks out of school because no one knows how to tell time with the second and the minute and the hour hand. Like, kids just don't, and it's not being taught in school how to tell time like that. So they're taking all of the analog clocks out of the schools. Like, that's just the world we're living in, bro.
I want my kids to be able to read or watch. It's the same thing with handwriting. They're not teaching handwriting in school.
Exactly.
But
you know, we're going more into hieroglyphic, abbreviation, you know,
listen,
shorthand reading.
I proof all my kids' papers and don't put no LOL and no damn.
Yeah, hip hop spelling. You know that the skins was fat. You know,
no,
with a PH.
I draw the line some places. I'm pretty flexible, but I draw the line in some places. You got to read, and you got to be a consumer of knowledge outside of YouTube and Reddit.
You know, my thing though, Jay, you just got to be curious. If somebody is sincerely curious,
right,
everything else will unfold.
I'm with the curiosity. I'm even with the challenging of the status quo. I've just seen so dark side of that, you know, in the last 4 years, especially. But, you know,
what do you mean?
Politics, man. Just the disinformation. People are just, you know, running with whatever some talking head said on YouTube as fact and gospel, and that's why we have people who are running away from science right now because at least in a book, it's been peer reviewed and more than one person has confirmed this information to be true. I can get on YouTube.
Come on.
You know,
come on, Jay. That's not true. What you're saying is not true.
Peer reviewed books doesn't happen in academia.
No, what I'm saying to you is that I grew up in certain schools with books lying to me all my life.
Okay.
Just because it's a book and it's got a peer review, don't mean, look, you know, I sat with Dr. Cornell West, who I heard him talk about certain white professors and they books and be like, boy, if you want to be misled, read that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like we still have to be able to be discerning of all information that we are getting. Absolutely. And I think sometimes with people who are purely academic, they're not very discerning that, you know, the ISIS papers may not be telling you the whole truth.
Right.
Then, it might be a little extremist.
Listen, there was a lot of books I read back in the day that I swore by, and it was like, but we read them at least.
Yeah, we read them. And you know what? I will say this. Reading makes you sit and meditate. Yes. And it does require more independent thoughtfulness than an internet, you know, clip or anything else.
That's all I'm saying. Like Wikipedia and YouTube can't be the extent of your research. Is all I'm saying. You know.
Yes, if you can take time to read, you can take time to think.
Yes. So on the subject of intellectual, have you beaten your father in chess yet?
I'm not gonna tell that to the world. I'm not gonna say anything about my father and our chess games. I'm gonna leave that up to the imagination.
Because I remember I watched the interview, a clip of an interview with him. That he beat me in chess, and this was about 5 years ago. So I'm wondering, since then, has Rhymefest been able to just
Nah, man, I ain't saying nothing. But he's good though. He's good.
Yeah.
He put all his life energy into it.
What about your kids? Do you play with your kids chess?
My son and I used to play a lot of chess together. My son and my father they love playing each other. They're the same mind. And it's very interesting too, seeing when I would see my son relate with his grandfather and how grandfathers and grandchildren relate. Like, and kind of like I'm insignificant at that point, you know?
How
And
so?
so that,
How so? Why do you say that?
well, because they have their own loving maternal and paternal and, you know, relationships and like they, you know, grandparents are co-parents.
Yes.
And so when you're a parent and you feel like, you know, oh, this child is my whole responsibility, and then you got a beautiful grandparent to come to your aid and assist, like it's a gift. And it should make us appreciate our parents. I mean, you and I were talking about that in the beginning, like parent appreciation.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I don't believe our country has enough of it. I don't want to say our world. I think it's specific to our country.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, Americans. Yeah, we don't make it easy for parents. I'll say that, and that comes from a holistic view of our finances, our health system.
Yeah, and you know what? And that's another thing. Like, you know what it really is, bro? And let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
Do you believe that finances is what's hurting us as a family?
It's a part. It's significant. I won't even. It's hard to make decisions when you can't pay the bills. It's hard to make decisions when there's no food. It's hard to listen to hear somebody out when you don't know where your next meal's coming from. It matters. It absolutely matters, and I think a big conflicts come in relationships from how to use those resources, how to procure those resources, the financial resources, and how they're spent. Is at the root. If you talk to a lot of couples, a lot of their arguments come from that. Like, how are we spending this money? Where is it coming? You just crawl Twitter and all the relationship conflict questions about money and how much they spending on the date and this, that, and the third. So I don't think finance is the only thing, but it's absolutely significant. Especially I've had an appreciation for how much I don't need though in this past
What do
year.
you mean?
The whole quarantine and lockdown and thing, I realized how much money I was wasting on certain things and that I don't need as much to be happy. As long as I have the roof over my head and
Roosevelt.
home, I don't need to buy as many new clothes. Where am I going? And I realized I spent a lot of money on sneakers. Need to be spending, you know. So I learned how to pare down my life and realize what I need versus what I want.
Yeah.
What about you? How has quarantine affected your family and your parenting?
Well, in terms of my family, my wife and I were already close, and it made us closer.
Nice.
You know, when the pandemic first happened, my wife and I got on the motorcycle and drove around Chicago, and it was an eerie feeling because no one was out but us on the motorcycle, and the air was still, and it felt like the calm before the storm, and it was just her and I together in this this apocalyptic beginning. And like, and I realized at that point, health is wealth. Whoever can stay healthy is gonna be okay. And this thing, man, has come. And like my wife introduced a theory that a lot of people's souls who knew what was to come, that didn't want to be here through this next phase, opted to leave.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And it's okay. They opted to leave. And some of us are like, nah, we were made for this moment.
Mm.
And here we are. And
Yeah.
so that's how my family is affected. Like, oh man, the pendulum just swung. This is what we've been waiting on. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I felt oddly prepared. You know, some people joke that I'm a Gen Xer. I'm 46. We were latchkey kids, so we were used to being in the house.
mm-hmm.
We were used to being in the house by ourselves with the TV. So this hasn't been as bad for some of us, but you know,
Yep. It's just the school thing, but then, in terms of like my relationship with my children, it's just been like we've been closer, man. We've all been closer. Like, because we're at home, we're like all getting together more, doing more creative, fun stuff, talent shows and prayer room and conferences. Like, we do church in the house, like, like together. And it's better than getting dressed up and going out to service and pretending like we getting God. Like, we're talking through the passages together. So, it's affected us, I think, in very positive bonding ways.
have you found yourself being creative during the lockdown? Making songs, writing scripts, you know.
No, not as creative as I would like to be. I'm always dibbling and dabbling. I did a lot of writing today. I'm very proud of my productivity today. But like, I've been living art lately, bro. Like, if you look at the places I've been going, I've been coloring with my experiences, and kind of like in a weird way, like I've been working through the way I've been living.
I've seen some of your posts, your travels. Um,
Mm-hmm. And that's what like my wife and I just came back from Mexico, and we got married by a shaman in a Mayan ruin, like, after doing peyote all night under the stars. You know what I'm saying? Like, like we're, this spring we're on our way to a sub-Saharan country called Mauritania, where they do, look at White Tiger on Netflix, where it talks about servants and people in slavery. That's not only happening in India, it's happening all over the world. And in this African country called Mauritania, where the white Arabs were enslaving the black Africans.
mm,
And so I'm going there this spring to do music with some of the ex-slaves that broke from bondage. And there are people there that believe that there's music so powerful it can make the masters drop the guns from their hands. And so, I'm working on. We'll be there this May. We'll be there in May, doing music with the Mauritanians. And so I look forward to like living art.
mm,
Like, I think a lot of times when we think art, we think about what we can make, package, and sell. And
mm.
I don't believe that brings true rewards. I believe that the rewards of art are when you mean it, when you're genuine.
Wow.
That's when the spirit comes.
Wow. Well, I'm looking forward to that and any other output from the great.
Oh, bro, yes, the album coming this year, Love Lessons, which will be it. Love Lessons is a book, and it is a album about the last 2 to 3 years of my life. Uh, we were beginning to make an album with me, Fonte, and Black Thought. You'll get a lot of songs from what we were doing, joints with Common and Jesse Jackson. It goes into like what happened with the making of Glory. The book is going to talk a lot about my relationship with Mr. West. It's going to talk a lot about just, you know, about my divorce that I just went through, and about fatherhood as well. And the, this book is it's kind of like Taoism for Black men,
Mm.
and Buddhism for Black men through hip hop. It's like the Buddhism of hip hop, and it comes with an album, and it's coming out this year. And I look for. I'm very excited about it.
Oh, I'm excited to hear about it too. Shoot. Well, thank you, sir. You have given me such a literal and figurative ride. If for people who aren't watching this, he's been doing this from his car.
For a long time.
Taking me a ride around Chicago today. So I appreciate you for taking the time to talk to me and share your experiences and give my best to your family and to your father. And I'm humbled and appreciative of your time.
Man, it's all love. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, bro. Anytime. And let's not be strangers, brother.
Not at all. I got your number. I'm gonna hit you up, and hopefully, when things open up, I'll be back in Chicago sometime soon. We'll definitely have to catch up.
All right.
Yeah.
Peace.
If you're enjoying Fathers Who Bother, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and follow us on Instagram at Fathers Who Bother and Twitter at Fathers Who Be. Thanks.